I'm calling this meeting to order and welcome. We got a nice crowd today. So let's move on to item number 2, which is approval of the meeting agenda. Do I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the meeting agenda as presented.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second, and all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. All right. Would you all be on the lookout out there? We have a guest coming. Okay. All right. The following presentations will be given as according to. So we have board member comments. Esther, do you have anything? Mr. Ball?
No, ma'am. That's it.
Wade?
No, that's not.
Okay, Jennifer? Okay. So that gives me, let's see, 12 minutes. Okay.
Uh-oh.
The School Board Association puts out a monthly magazine. It goes out to about 1,500 people or so. It's probably more than that, because they send it to a lot of school personnel also. And last month, Danville was graced with Mr. Wade Stanfield being in there and being quoted concerning our tax rate, that we actually have dropped taxes a bit. And so there was a quote in there. So when I got mine in the mail today, I usually just leave it sitting on the dining room table until I take some time to look at it. But lo and behold, and I had gotten a little warning, Mr. Ball is featured in a feature in the magazine that's called Beyond the Board, and a lot of board members get on in there, and it's what they do beyond, I mean, their regular life beyond what we do here. So it is online if you all want to take a look at it under ksba.org. But it really is great. Now, when Glenn walks around at a conference, he usually has this jacket, so it's not like they don't find out who he is pretty quickly. So it's a really great identifier for him. But Mr. Bob, we're very proud of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to superintendent comments.
Well, I know that normally there's a list of activities, and I'll work on some activities for our next meeting in November of the good things going on, some highlights. But I did want to share some of my highlights this past week. Of course, started last Monday and hit the ground running. I really was able to visit each school in our district, and at each one of those schools I was able to meet with the principal, and they were able to walk me around, introduce me to students, to many staff members, and so forth. But perhaps the highlight of the entire day was at Hogshead Elementary, where I received, and I was going to share just a couple of them, some cards out of Mrs. McRae and Mrs. Jackie's class. And so, for example, welcome to the Danville Schools, Dr. Thomas, and Amy. This was Joanna Mejia, and this is Amy. Welcome to the Danville Schools, Dr. Thomas, with a nice little heart. I think that may be me with Joanna right there. So really enjoyed that, and I just loved how you could see how our teachers and our students love our district. Also at that particular school, I really encouraged a young lady who I spoke with. At the end of the day, she was honored, and she got to speak to, I guess, her classmates, and she had said that I'd spoken a little Spanish with her earlier in the day, and the deal was this. She said, he spoke a little Spanish and a lot of English. And I speak a lot of Spanish and a little English. And so it was just, for me, I thought it was, what a deep thought from a primary student to bring that to light. And so I appreciate Ron Ballard. He really helped me take me through the district and really guiding me on some history of the renovations and so forth throughout the day. And so I've taken that approach pretty much through the rest of the week. In meeting with a lot of people within the schools and district staff and some of our board members, and so I've really been using that time to kind of listen and start listening to some thoughts about what our district needs moving forward. And I've also seen most all of our facilities and assessing those needs, and I've reflected a little bit on the work ahead. And I guess I culminate my thoughts this evening with what I left thinking after that first day, that yes, there's a lot of work to do in this district, and there's much work for the superintendent, there's much work for this board, but I tell you what I've noticed, a lot of pride in this district, and a dedication to students, and truly a desire across the district and really the community of Danville for the Danville Independent Schools to thrive. And I think it's an honor to be a part of that. So thank you, and that concludes my report.
Well, thank you, Dr. Thomas. Nice things to hear. All right, let's go to item 3C, which is student recognition or staff. So do we have any recognitions?
One from each school.
Okay, so who would like to go first? Suzanne?
Sure.
Okay. Sorry.
It's all right. I actually told my person that we'd probably be first. I said that often, let's start with opposites, so I'm happy to start. Today we're honoring Cynthia Stone, and she is an instructional assistant. We really value that we have so many strong classified staff in our district, especially if we feel really lucky to have Cynthia with us. And she comes with a wealth of knowledge, but we've been lucky to place her this year as an interventionist, helping our intervention team. And in many ways, she takes on the work of a teacher instead of just a instructional assistant. So she actually has a planning period. She's leading a lot of instruction with our students. She actually tackles virtual instruction. We have a student that has a virtual learner that has intervention with Cynthia every day. So she's amazing and has taken ownership of these students and has a sense of urgency to accelerate learning for our kids. So we're really, really happy to have her. You're going to have to come up here.
Thank you.
If y'all hold a second.
If y'all will hold a second,
Oh, wait.
Mr. Stanfield's going to represent the board tonight with recognitions.
Okay.
You get it.
If you represent, I'll.
Since he got his haircut last week.
Yes.
So-
Okay. You're the person.
One, two,
I'll break it.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Okay, Dr. Murray?
All right, so I was given the task to recognize somebody, and I was thinking about who represents BATE and everything that BATE stands for. And the person that came to mind is somebody who was an instructional assistant when I started at BATE. She's somebody that decided to take on the athletic director role for us when I needed somebody to do that, and she's taken that on and shined. She's been our softball coach, continues to be our softball coach. She filled in last year. In the middle of the year, we had a staff member leave, and she emergency certified was emergency certified to be a long-term sub for that English class. Then she decided that she liked that, and she finished her bachelor's degree and joined a master's program, and is now an Option 6 English teacher at Bate Middle School. So this person she's a Danville grad. She lives and breathes Bate Middle School, and she is at Bate Middle School all the time. So Tara Emerson is Bate's recognition.
Yes.
Wait till you just hang out up there.
Oh, you did it.
Tonight's your night.
It's always one thing.
I have that. Anyway.
I wonder why.
Oh, that's
One,
funny.
2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
All right. So we have the high school or Chad?
Go.
You got Robin Kevin too.
Oh, and Robin. Robin, do you want to go before Chad? Where are you? There you go.
I do want to say that Tolliver has also benefited from the daughter of Mrs. Stone. Her daughter works at Tolliver, and Mrs. Emerson's husband works at Tolliver. So I second those recommendations.
And her
Tolliver's
mom works at Bate too.
Wow.
So
family. I love
whole
it.
family affair.
Okay. So tonight I want to recognize Renee Lanigan. I first met Renee back in my days at Jenny Rogers when she was a 3rd grade teacher. can't say enough fabulous things about what she did for 8-year-old students at that time at Tolliver. She has since moved into an intervention role and is responsible for our Read to Achieve grant at Tolliver and works with different grade levels. And at this point, I'm safe to say it's probably somewhere in the range of thousands of students that she's touched and have benefited because of Renee's effort. Renee is a great listener. She responds very appropriately and is always looking for solutions to problems. She's excellent at sharing best practices, and because of that, she raises the level of the colleagues that work around her to be better through her collaboration efforts. Renee is super patient. In case you didn't know, reading intervention takes a lot of time, and that can also be a slow process. Renee, I love the way that she helps her students set goals and then watches them, even when the progress is small, keeping them focused on that is positive and forward progress. So kudos to you. She's very empathetic and positive, always cheerleader for somebody who may be down or having a bad day. Renee is adaptable. You want to talk about somebody who's flexible with a capital F, you should see what those interventionists did when we were virtual and then hybrid, and some of the kids came back all the time, some of the kids were not, and those, of course the data is always changing, so kids are moving through groups. Definitely adaptable to what the data is saying to her. She has an uncanny ability to help you see her vision to what she wants or what she says she needs. She's very persuasive about getting there. You're going to soon see one of those visions come to light at our next family night, which we'll all get an invitation to. She's just all around top notch. I'm so thrilled that she's on Team Tolliver, and thank you for all your efforts in making the difference in many, many lives of children. You're in today's picture, so.
I like that. Wayne's a delegator. Jennifer, you just need to hang out close. Okay, Mr. Lumen, please. Sherry, you might have to get at a different angle on this one too.
I just want to come up and recognize Miss Laura Eason. Miss Eason is our media specialist, our librarian. She is the first person that students see when they first walk in the doors. As they come in, she's always there with a mask if you need a mask, some hand sanitizer, and a pleasant and kind word to get you started on your day. The reason we're really recognizing her, and she was Teacher of the Week last week, but she put together a fabulous plan for our Mastery Prep, which is our ACT diagnostic, and she put that together and made sure that all of our students got all of the extended time that they needed, and teachers were where they're supposed to be, and even I was there monitoring and making sure that everyone got the breaks that they needed. She's always has literacy first on her mind. Every time I turn around, there's 3 tables in the front foyer and there's free books on them. And I'm like, what are the books doing back again? But she always has books she's giving away. She's always encouraging our students, and she loves to read. So if you would, help me honor Miss Laura Eason.
She's also his building assessment coordinator, which is a big task. Just went in way. The microphone was going to go away.
Tell them why she's professional photographer. Well, and congratulations to all. I think it's really great that we do take the time. We do recognize students, of course, but we also need to recognize staff that are behind these students, because they make the difference, as we all do. So I really appreciate the principals being here, along with their folks that have been recognized. And so looking forward to doing more of this, of course, every meeting. And so we'll go from there. Okay, under 3D.
I think I saw Brad out there. Oh, there he is here.
Mr. Hughes, if you'll stand, please. Brad Hughes is retired from KSBA. He's a statewide and nationally known as a communications guru, media manager. Brad and I have known each other for, let's see, 16 years, at least,
You had
and.
dark hair back then.
Yeah, exactly.
I had hair.
And he, well, I always had hair. But anyway, Brad was always the go-to guy when it came to even ethics situations that come up in public. And so he was able to help us and continues to help board members and superintendents to come to grips on what it is that communication means. And I know we had a discussion whether, is it PR? Is it communications? Is there a combination of all of it? So we invited Brad to come to the meeting to speak to the board to help us fill that role of a media manager or whatever, director or whatever we might call that person. So, Mr. Hughes?
Well, thank you for inviting me to be here tonight. I would prefer probably to answer questions. I don't know if Dr. Thomas would want to, if there's areas, he and I discussed a couple of times last week about your all's considering restarting this position. And for those who haven't been on the board very long or may not have been involved with the district for very long, and I'm having a senior moment now, so forgive me, but who was your communications director named Jane years ago?
We're all new here, Brad.
Not all of us.
All senior moments. Okay, well, anyway.
No, we've got Jane.
No, Jane.
Was it Jane Boyd?
We've got the.
Jane Boyd.
Jane Boyd.
Okay, Jane Boyd.
It was Jane Boyd.
Yeah. 30 years ago when I started in school communications, Jane Boyd was already making Danville Independent a well-known district outside of the community, while she kept, as somebody mentioned earlier, the family. And quite honestly, I know a lot about a lot of school districts around the state. There are a few school districts where the word family applies like it does apply, like one of your principals said earlier, to Danville Independent. You have, as the superintendent was telling me, it's a growing community. You've got folks that are coming in every year, but you've got a history and a tradition that precedes all of you and will last longer than that. As to what you want to do with a communications position, I've jotted down some quick notes right here. I would strongly recommend that you don't put a focus on one communications approach. Clearly don't try to focus, and this is no disrespect at all, if there's anybody here with the Advocate's Messenger, love the newspapers. But the Advocate Messenger is twice a week now, as I understand it. It used to be 7 days a week. Okay. You share the Advocate Messenger with the county school system, with Center College, and with the Community Technical College. In the media, mainstream media today, education stories are education stories. And that may include a Danville Independent story, that may include a Boyle County story, Center, whatever else like that. So you're not going to become a Danville Independent education story all the time. So the things that I'll talk about, and you'll be talking about over time, are things that you can do to generate stories in the local newspaper. But just understand, when the news hole was 7 days a week like this, and some of you who've been around a long time remember, now 2 days a week it's like this. But the competition is not only still there, it is actually grown. So I would just keep that in mind as you set goals for the work of the administration and of this position, keep that in mind. Clearly, in communications, in school communications today, one of the things that I try to preach is that you need to identify your audiences. And by that I mean your target audiences. And your target audience is not everybody. You may reach some people with communications messages that are meant for this group or that group. For example, we were talking the other day about something that may be targeted to parents and staff at Tolliver. Some of those parents also have kids in the high school, and they would be interested in that. Some high school grads would be interested in that because they may have gone to Tolliver years ago. But if you just throw everything out there, it's kind of like the old joke about throwing spaghetti on the wall. The part that sticks is the things that reach out to people. But if everybody's not looking at the wall, it doesn't matter what actually sticks there. So you've got to be able to figure out who it is you want to reach. We talked about, for a growing community, realtors. All of your realtors ought to be an identified target audience. Maybe pediatricians for families that are having young kids that you want to have being part of your district. And I don't want to go into all of those tonight, just simply to say that these are the types of target audiences in addition to the internals. The internals being obviously your families, your parents, your students. Internals are going to be all of your staff. And it's not just this person as your superintendent. It's every staff person, every bus driver, every custodian. I like to encourage people to think about the fact that every clerk, every cafeteria worker has her or his circle of influence. And the greater degree that you can get them in the loop, the more they're going to share within their circle of influences the stories. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have critics, as you obviously will have. I would simply say that the more you can share the good news in the family, the more likely that the family members are going to share it with folks out in the community. Let's see here. I talk about, I spend a lot of time looking at board meetings and board meeting rooms. And a couple of things that you might want to look about that are communications aspects, not necessarily for one person. But I look around here, and I don't want to step on anybody's foot, but I see a bunch of pictures of old white guys on the wall, okay? And I look around here for a picture of a child, or a teacher and a child, or anything else like that. And I would just strongly encourage, and I don't know if this is not where you normally meet, maybe you normally meet in a place that has a gallery of pictures. But if not, I would take a look at that, because you say success for all, show it. And I know that you have, as I think you have, that the meeting is videotaped and then it's available for viewing on the web. Do some things in here that show that emphasis, that focus on the kids. They will say messages that are verbally silent, but are visually and mentally very powerful. I don't know, for an easy example, I don't know if KSBA is going to be doing the banners for this year's conference that they've done in the past. I have gone to some board rooms where they have hung those banners in their boardroom. I know that Danville High has, or at least when I was involved with all the districts, had an incredible arts program. Maybe you have examples of student art that could be rotated in. It doesn't have to be high school student art. There's a lot of great little finger painting of Thanksgiving coming up. There'll be a lot of turkeys that'll be looking like this. They could be the types of things that you could put up in here. That's away from the communication position, I know, but it's just something as an observation. And one of the things we talked about, and I'll wrap up and take any questions, is social media. There are few people in the world today that know much about social media that don't fall into one of two areas, love it or hate it. And I see all of the problems of social media every single day. I started KSBA's social media program more than a decade ago. I now operate a blog for K-12 folks. And I am on social media on every day. I'm a big believer in social media. Social media that is active and helps tell the story of the school district. And again, I don't want to step on anybody's toes who's in the room or sees this video who's responsible for social media. But I went to your Twitter page. And the last thing on your Twitter page, at least as of last night that I saw, was from October 1st. And it was a retweet of a Boyle County tweet. On Facebook, more robust, quite a bit more robust. October 10th was the last thing that was there, but there was a bunch of stuff that was there. I counsel the school district leaders and the school communications people, and I still work with a number of school communications people around the state. Social media is not about having something new that goes on there every single day. It's not even about having something on there regularly, so that folks are looking on Monday or Thursday or Friday or something else like that. But it is about having something on there frequently. And I have seen already 3 things, I won't get into them, but I've seen 3 things tonight that I would say are prime things for your social media, and they show up in the social media tomorrow. If you want to have a robust social media platform, or for you all 2 platforms, having it does no good if you don't promote it. If you don't tell people, and you can't tell people at the start of the school year, or even at the start of the 2 semesters. You've got to have, when I was at KSBA, I had, you all know about the auto signatures after my name, and it had the links to our Twitter account, to our Facebook account. Just little things that can be done to constantly remind people that this is a resource. So that folks are going, so that when you had to make your decisions about bad weather, or so that when you have to make decisions about budget, or when you have great news to share, that people start thinking about your social media places as, if not the first resource, at least one of the top resources that you go to. And these are all these things I've talked about are things that a communications person can do for you, should you decide that those are the priorities. That's what I want to wrap up with. You got to decide what are your priorities and goals for someone in this position to do. Is this person going to be focused broadly? Are they going to focus on internal communications and nothing else? Are they going to be someone who's going to try to create a buzz about Danville Independent in the community and elsewhere? Should they be someone who has this background or that background? You need to figure those things out before you go out and hire somebody. And I will tell you that you're in, or about, if you're not into it, you're about to begin into a superintendent search. That may hamper you somewhat in filling what I would consider to be a very key position in hiring someone to come in who is going to be hired by one person, but in just a matter of months is going to be turned over to somebody else. Just be realistic. I think you would think about those types of things in becoming any other important position in the community, in your administrative team. So I probably talked more than you wanted, but I'd be happy to answer any questions now, or to Superintendent reached out to me, and I'm happy to have any members of the board reach out to me.
Yeah, thank you, Brad, and what a wonderful conversation. I did follow you on Twitter after that conversation, so it really led to some good stuff. Independent districts who are doing it well.
I will focus on a smaller number than you just mentioned. Independent districts that are in a similar situation, that have not only a county system, but have higher education, other things like that. Clearly, in my mind, Bowling Green, Owensboro, Paducah, Corbin.
So they're hitting this, they're driving, you feel like.
From what I see, understand now that I see, my focus is on their social media and on mainstream media.
Sure.
But those are the people, when a bus has an accident, those are people who they're out front with the facts, as opposed to letting the rumor mill take over.
Perfect.
When they have pick up a great grant that's going to help kids, they're out there with that story. Even if they don't get the mainstream media to pick it up, they're out there telling that story. There's probably other ones, but those are the ones that immediately come to mind. Forgive me. Oh no, that's the county system, so I won't go there. But those would come to mind immediately.
Thank you.
So what you're saying is that particular person should be proactive and not reactive.
That person has to be both proactive and reactive. For this reason, bad stuff happens in schools.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I wanted to do a daily school news blog on bad news, I wouldn't have any problems at all.
Mm.
To do a daily school news blog to find positive stories, let me tell you, I'm digging every day out there sometimes to try to find something that is a positive story, but they're out there. But no one's going to tell it if you don't tell it yourself.
Mm.
And maybe that's what I would try to do.
Okay.
Brad, give me the difference between a PR person and a communication person, or is there a difference?
Well, and we had this discussion the other day. In public service, I am not big on the use of the phrase public relations, because that has not only a business connotation. If you got folks that don't like you, they're going to wonder why you're spending money on public relations. Communications, public engagement, parent engagement, anything like that, they are all, to stick, Steve, with what you said, PR is really almost focused exclusively on telling your story. There's more to communications than just telling your story. Telling your story may be 90% of what that person does, but the other 10%, when the bad stuff happens, when the routine stuff that maybe is not all that great, but you still need to educate your community, your parents, your internal audiences. That's going to be a part of the communications as well. Letting people know what's coming up at the board meeting. That's part of the communications. It may not be great PR, but it's part of having an effective communications program that lets people know.
Okay, guys, this is our opportunity. Brad drove in from Louisville, so please pick his brain.
So I have a question. Thank you for driving over this way. I know that driving is not fun.
Sorry to keep me out of the first half hour of Dancing with the Stars tonight.
Were you going to dance alone?
No, let's just say we have a Monday night 2-hour time frame in our house where that's on the TV and anything else I can find is on the laptop.
So my question is this position too big for one person? If you're doing social media right?
Well, depends on what you prioritize and what the skill set is. For example, if you wanted to get into some videos, and I don't mean just setting the camera up and taping and then putting something up, which nothing wrong with that. But if you wanted to get into, there are a number of superintendents around the state who have weekly video reports to the community. They load up the video and they post it on the website or something else like that. That might not be in the skill set of the individual. Now, I don't know, high school principal, do you have an SCLP program at the high school?
Yeah.
You have the videos and things like that?
All the time.
Well, there's no reason to hire someone if you've got the technology and somebody else here to help do that type of work. For someone in social media, you can be taught to do social media, and I have no doubt that you've got staff already who do social media more effectively than I have. But it is into, as we talked the other day, my blog's on Twitter. Twitter has a wonderful analytics tool, and I check that analytics tool multiple times a week. I'm trying to find out if there's a trend of story ideas out there that people are looking at. What we discussed the other day was, you post, I think the video and things like that are available on Twitter. Is somebody looking to look at the analytics to see, is the time worth it that staff has spent? I will tweet out the State Board of Education meeting. I may not be able to see the whole State Board of Education meeting, but they archive their video. They put it up there. And then I may go back if I missed the meeting and say, okay, they started talking about test scores at the 10-minute mark. They started talking about masking at the 20-minute mark and things of that nature that I know is a help to my audience out there. And there's all sorts of other, I think we talked about that most of the principals have an email distribution list. If there's something great happening at one school and it's shared at that school, maybe that could make it into like the end of the email that the principal is putting out to his or her staff out there. I think you can do it with one person. I wouldn't work them to death. But once you decide what your priorities are, once you decide what it is you want to accomplish, one of the first things you need to do is see, what are you doing now? I don't know all the things that you all are doing right now. You need to look to see what are you doing right now, and then start asking some of these people in the room and other people in the district, do they use it? Is it being something they consider as a resource? One of the hardest things to do when you relaunch, if you will, a certified, not certified, but a communication program, is to decide, is there something we need to let go of? But I think one person, as long as that person isn't given 11, 17 job responsibilities that they have, you can do it with one person for sure.
Thank you.
Wade, did you have any?
He asked my question.
Okay. Glenn?
And some of the things you talk about using and doing, can students be used?
Well, clearly on the technological side, you could certainly use a student for that.
Okay.
I would be reluctant to put a student in, I wouldn't see this as a co-op type position.
Okay.
Now, there could be, for example, a co-op type position if they were producing a weekly video update of things that are going around the district, and the student or group of students are producing that. I would put a student in a position of having to be the front communications person who has responsibilities. That might, one, competing with the academics that they need to be doing,
Sure.
but two, there's sometimes that stories need to be told that you're not going to want to have told.
Okay.
I would put that on the kid.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Okay, Esther, do you have?
No, I'm just thinking here what this job, what we need to look for. I'm just kind of trying to plan and see, because it's going to be a huge list. Do you know where we could maybe find something?
Well, I'm confident that in those 4 districts that I mentioned, that they not only have a job description, but they also have, those 4 districts have 4, what I would say, superior, the Jane Boyd level of quality communications people in there. And you can get some sort of range like that. I would certainly encourage Superintendent Thomas to be having conversations with some of his peers. You're in KEC, correct?
Sure.
Okay.
CKC.
CKC, okay, to have with some of your peers there about what they are doing. Well, he was a superintendent himself, so I mean, you know those same things. I do strongly encourage, and we spent a lot of time talking about this the other day, when you bring someone into this position, this person needs a mentor, and the person needs a mentor from outside the school district. Because there are going to be some days when the boss does stuff that's going to fry the communications person on. There are going to be some days that the 5 of you all do things that are going to fry the communications line. And sometimes it helps just to be able to talk to somebody else out there who is dealing with the same thing. There's going to be times when they want to do something, and there's going to be dual messages from the county school system and the independent school system, and having somebody out there who is already doing that type of work. Well, we did this, or we did that. Everybody is interested in back to school in August. You have a back to school in January. What kind of stories do you share in January back to school? A story doesn't just mean mainstream news media. So that's a long answer to your question.
No, you're good, thanks.
Like I said, we got Brad here, so if are there any other comments or concerns?
No.
Elmer, do you have anything else you want to?
No, I mean,
And-
I've taken several notes again tonight and several from Brad the other day that I feel like provides a good foundation for what we talked about last Monday. I just appreciate him. So he came down on his own, wouldn't charge us anything, and just as an expert, as you mentioned last week and again tonight. So, Brad, thank you.
Appreciate you bringing me out
Thank you very much.
bringing me out of mothballs.
Well, we appreciate you very much. And,
If I can help in any way down the road, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll head to Dancing with the Stars.
All right, be careful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Esther, Esther, can you turn your mic towards Mr. Roll? I think that's either that one or that one is where the feedback is coming from. It's directly. Same. Let's do that.
All right, that was nice to have Brad here for that. He's done it all. He's done radio, journalism, TV, all of it.
He's got a voice, doesn't he?
He has the voice and still has the voice. And he's always been a real approachable guy. And he's been around a long time with school issues and that kind of thing. So I'm hoping we can call on him again as we get closer to making this decision. And he is correct. We're looking at bringing in a communications person with an interim that we're hoping is going to work out for the next superintendent. So it really is difficult to do that. And some districts may not do that. They may say, let's do what we can at this point and then let that new superintendent hire in that communication person. I don't know where we are on that yet, but it's something we might want to discuss. So, any other? Go ahead, Lee.
I think that we're just in a position where we needed one yesterday.
I agree.
And it is what it is.
Yeah, I just to further that, I don't mean to jump in, but the person who comes on is going to be continually telling the damn story. And there may be some changes from one administration to the other, but
The story.
we still got our kids, we still have our district, and that will.
I say that's a benefit.
Yeah, activity is still occurring, so we need to process that and move it along.
Oh, I agree totally.
What he said about including more about the students, to me, is most important.
That's great.
Because in the old boardroom, I think there's some pictures upstairs of youth.
We did, and they may still be there.
Yeah.
I think they are in the flex room.
Yeah, flex one, yeah. So that emphasis needs to go back to that.
All right. All right, well, thank you all, and this will be something we'll be in discussion about, and I'm with Mr. Stanfield. I'm hoping we can get a person on board soon, and then we know what we think is communication is like. To me, it's like, okay, it can't be all that tough. There's a lot to it, and so I'm not in the field, so but I have learned a lot these last couple of years. All right, let's move to, we have no one to speak from the public, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to number 5, which is approval of previous meeting minutes. Need a motion, please?
I'd like to offer a motion for approval of the previous minutes as listed on the agenda.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes for 9/1, 9/8, 9/13, 9/20, 9/23, 9/27, 9/28, 9/30, and 10/11. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. And also on that, I have to thank the board members for doing as much as we did, because it does take time. And so, it was a lot of meetings, but I blamed it on Dr. Thomas. And it didn't matter about the blame, he's here. So anyway, we got quite lucky on that, so thank you all. All right, let's go down to reports, and Dr. Thomas is going to talk about staffing.
Well, just a couple of things that we're exploring possibilities on. One is, just kind of as I've taken this first week in the district, just exploring the possibilities of adding a position that we would use ESSER funding for, and Sherry will talk about that a little bit, some of the flexibility that we have there. Just some discipline stuff in particular our high school. I talked with the high school principal about putting some processes and procedures in place that's going to work, in particular at that school. And so kind of the thinking on my part is we've got a new administrative staff there, and really they're doing a great job every single day. I'm enjoyed my conversations multiple times this last week with Mr. Lumen, and just trying to put a system in place. Part of that might be that this could be that I don't know any better way to say it than find some old guard who's been doing the understanding of discipline and how that helps all students learn, and let that person maybe mentor some of our administrators. And so I'm just exploring those possibilities right now, but want to let the board know that up front. And then the second one, so I'm not asking for any action on that. The second one is just to alert you that we do have a position that is, I think can be the administrative assistant liaison to the board. As you all know, we've tried to get a wrangle on the portal, on KSBA's portal, on who's uploading documents and how that's run. I appreciate Ms. Satterley she's updating that live tonight as you vote, and she's really done tremendous work this week getting a lot of things going. But there's a lot of things. There's a little bit of stuff that the board does. You know, you've got the KSBA coming up, and we could have a liaison who does that. And then also, it's just a big job inside of our office. So just scheduling things that the next superintendent might need scheduled or calendars taken care of, and just responding to the public. I think one of my roles is to certainly put some good things in order so that the next superintendent can really thrive and focus on our instruction for our district. And so we've got that position. It's one that is vacated and has been vacated. It's just not been filled. And so I just want to alert the board, whenever you see something like that, that's not going to be anything additional on our general fund other than what has been in the past. And we do have some of our larger positions that were not filled in the last year that would even more than cover the staffing cost on that. And so I just want to make the board aware of those couple of things. One that could possibly be coming to the board in early November. And then as I really try to define what that liaison to the board administrative assistant looks like, that's one that we would see. And of course, we bring that person in and let them understand the board, let the board understand what they would be doing in regards to the liaison aspect.
Okay, so because the job has not been, as we would say, abolished, it still would be something that would be posted for the 15
Absolutely,
days?
yes.
And then also the student life coordinator, whatever you would call him at the high school, that would also be a posted position?
It would be.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? I'll do Dr. Comments. I appreciate the heads up. It'll give us something to talk about, and we have to be stewards of our money and to our stakeholders. But if ESSER funds can help out at the high school, and then an administrative assistant here at central office, we're going to need to take a look and value that. So thank you very much. Okay, we're going to have finance report.
This is Kim.
Hi, Kim.
Hi.
Introduce yourself to everybody.
All right. I am Kim Huddleston. I am the Director of Finance and HR for Danville Independent School District. I've been here, but I haven't had the opportunity to meet each one of you individually. I have a few of you. And I just wanted to kind of go over the finance report tonight. I had a chance to upload that for you to take a look at before the meeting. And we, the numbers look somewhat different, but a lot of that has to do with grant monies from this year. It kind of goes back to the working budget that we had last month. Also, the sale that we had from the proceeds of Jenny Rogers. And so the main thing, we went down through there and we did do balance out for the month. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to discuss that.
Has there been any, with concerns, talks about, they are projecting we're going to see 30 to 50% increases in our utilities?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. We've already seen some increases, not just in utilities, but diesel for our buses. And so that was in some of the invoices that was in the next section. But because of those increases, obviously, we did not expect those last year when we was looking at the budget, but we, last month, when we reviewed the working budget and was working to get all the data in there, those gas prices and diesel prices had already started to rise. So those are actually figured in and we've adjusted that. But when you're looking at last year and this year, obviously you're gonna see a huge difference because it's apples and oranges, not apples and apples. And yes, we did figure in some increased costs of utilities.
Because I noticed our electric bill for the district was almost $36,000. You know, that's a phenomenal amount of money, but then again, you look at how much square footage we're lighting and all like that, so.
Yes, and then last year also at the same time frame, you did not have students in the building, so your heat and air, which is one of your major components of those utilities, was not being utilized as much as it is now.
So it's gonna increase just because the body's being in the building, but it's also
Yes.
gonna increase because possibly the utility rates are gonna go up.
Yes, sir. It's very hard to compare like this last year and this year just because it's not the same year. And we didn't have the same year before that, so each year is like a new standard. So hopefully if we ever get back to kind of where we were, we might have to go back 3 or 4 years to kind of look to see what's going on.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No.
So go ahead.
Please, if you have any questions. That's what I have for the bank reconciliation. And I also have included the invoice, vendor invoice information. So do they have to vote on the first part?
Yes, on the
report
on the
first?
financial statement first.
Okay. So you all have had a chance to take a look at the numbers and all that? Okay, so we need a motion, please.
I'd like to offer a motion that we approve the financial statement as submitted.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of the financial statements as presented. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we're going to be looking at the payment of invoices. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and
So there was a few things I just wanted to point out. We paid our other school districts for the pig skin classic, and you can see that we have paid Casey County, and we also have the other county, I believe it was Berry County.
it was, I saw it.
And so, one of the items I also had highlighted was the diesel tech that we just discussed and how it had increased this month and compared to last year at the same time. Obviously, we wasn't even running buses last year, so that was another factor that we had to consider. Also, one other thing that I wanted to point out was Wausau paper. We went ahead and we paid off that debt.
What was it, 155,000 or so?
It was, we paid 2 payments in September, which was the final 2 payments, and that was $111,570.82. And you need a reference page that's on page 27.
Does anybody else have any comments or?
I was just glad to get that paid off. That was stuck. And I was glad that we as a board could do that and
That was
bring
right
that
on.
debt because we're going for an upcoming one, and so we have to pay both of them at the same time. I mean, I'm just glad we were able to do that, so appreciate you getting that taken care of.
Yes, yes, sir. And one of the things, the auditor was here this past week, and so we did discuss that payment. And what we had originally done on the previous payments before I came on board was just netted it out in that area, but we wanted to show it as a miscellaneous payment there. And it really wasn't something that what auditors consider extraordinary, because normally taxes can be reimbursed if they're overpaid. It was just an unusually large amount, so we should have that squared away.
That's good. Can I make a comment? I had several friends call, and even though people don't like paying taxes, but they were so appreciative that the Danville Schools tax bills went out early so that, you know, they can get prepared to pay. Have we had anybody come in?
We actually had a business that called that morning and wanted to know what their tax bill was, and they FedExed it, and we had it by that afternoon. So, yeah, we have had actually.
And if I can interject, it's been a revolving door all day today.
Yes.
Good.
It has been a busy time frame. And one thing I do want to mention is that for our taxes for last year, we were still at 7% that were uncollected, which is really actually a good figure. And our auditor also said that across school districts, that they have seen that number jump considerably, a lot to do with COVID and people not having the money to pay those taxes. So I feel like we're in good standing.
Good.
Yeah, that was a huge decision we made years and years ago when we found out that independent districts can collect their own taxes. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
We need a motion, please.
The motion would be accept payment of invoices as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for the approval of payment of the invoices as presented. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. All right, let's go to 6C, which is the ESSER fund update.
That's me. This is just, do y'all care if I sit right here? Is this okay?
That's
I-
right.
Sure.
Did it upload? I don't have a copy.
Yeah, I did.
Just, it
I
says
didn't
close.
It's
get it.
there.
It didn't upload on mine. I mean, it didn't upload, so I didn't get to see it.
Do you have it on yours?
Okay,
Okay.
wait, you can scoot in over here if you want.
I just did it. You didn't get it?
Mm-mm. No, you-
Do you want me to send it to the copier and grab some copies really quickly?
That would be great.
I'll-
It's a one pager, right?
No, it's 5.
Okay. That's all right.
I still haven't seen it.
Yeah, I think you
Have that.
need to have it, probably. No, if it, I got it the same way. Sherry, I'll go 692. It's the one without the COVID sticker.
Don't run, just walk.
Do you care if I go ahead and start explaining a little bit through it? So
Sure.
it's a long document because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different pots of ESSER funds listed in here. So at the top, when you get your copy, you'll see that there's a note that says, while all remaining funds have been allocated, because we had to allocate all the funds and submit it to the state for approval. There is still some flexibility within some of those pots of money, and I've listed 3 pots that we have more flexibility in at the top. And those 3 pots are the 2 pots of ESSER 2 and ESSER 1. So the first one on the front page, when you see this 613F is the first round of care money and gear money we got. And if you remember, that was gonna primarily be spent on cleaning and mitigating the risk of COVID. And you'll see that that's a lot of what it was spent on. You'll see a large amount spent on contract custodial, because that was when we approved an outside company to come in and clean at night, in addition to what our custodians were doing. But you'll see that we still have $382,000 left in that pot. So, we have quite a bit left in several of them. On the second page, I hate to go too far without you all having your copies. The second page is where SR2 starts, and you remember that had to be divided into direct services for students. 85% for students, 15% could go to other things. The 15%, Mr. Gover, you might want to chime in, the 15%, which is on the third page, we used primarily for educational technology and some classified salary. We actually ended up putting some of that in capital outlay, so we didn't spend as much on the technology as we had planned on, so we have some that's why we have some flexibility there. We ended up only spending about $10,000 on technology out of that pot when we were planning on spending quite a bit more than that. But we had another pot we could stick that in. ESSER, the second page, the 85% for students, you'll remember we did the unfinished learning grant where, like Dr. Murray put 90 minutes of reading and math in his schedule so that he could get his $160 per student. So he used, like for example at Bate, if you turn to page 2, he used the bulk of his money from that grant to buy an interventionist. So all of that you may not see in what's been expended at this point, but you'll see salary up to this point. So if you look at page 2, up to this point, we've actually taken all of our salary out of 3, so you don't see any regular salary coming out of on page 2, but you see the first object code is extended days. That was to provide our assistant principal at the high school with more extended days to service students. Other certified salaries there on page 2, you see $139,990 has been expended. That was on all of our summer programming across all 4 schools, just for certified staff. And then other classified, you see $16,715. That was classified staff during the summer programs as well. And then you see all their fringes down through there. Their fringes go from 0221 all the way down to 0296. So those are the fringes that go along with salary when you're, and they're a little bit more expensive out of a federal grant than they are just out of general fund. You see our big object code in SR2 is 0610 general supplies. One of them, $55,000, because we paid for school supplies for all of our students. And we're still doing that. We're not done. We gave them all the allocation that you all approved, and they are replenishing those when they need to. So I get POs probably from 1 school per week to, hey, we need more of this. So we're keeping track of that in finance. Supplemental books and study guides, we've used a lot to buy things for like our EL education for Haza and Tolliver. That's our reading and writing program. Supplies, technology related. We've bought some stuff for the high school, the ViewSonic boards.
Yeah, we bought equipment, we've used it for our software, and I think she's going to mention this, or I think maybe she already has. You know, we've already got some stuff budgeted for year 2. It's not been spent yet, but it is budgeted technology-wise. And like she said, we do have flexibility with the funds, but some of those, they're not too flexible, and some of the technology is not as flexible.
Yes. The technology-related, one of the things when Brad mentioned software, it made me think of Bait again. They made the move from MAP to iReady this year, and that was a pretty big purchase. So I think, did we go ahead and pay for 2 years of that?
I think so.
I think we did. So we went ahead and put that allocated in there for 2 years so that they would be able to have that sustainability. Again, on the third page, 554G is that indirect. We have a little more flexibility there to where it doesn't have to be for instruction, but the reason we have quite a bit of flexibility in 554G and GD is because our auditors have been here, and they were here with the task of auditing our federal programs. So I think I I wasn't even in the office that day, but my phone rang 20 times. I think, okay, you've got this in the ESSER budget. The auditor's saying you can't buy this. So a lot of things that the federal funding matrix was saying we could buy, the auditor was saying absolutely not. So that's why we have a little more flexibility in those pots. Because there was a greenhouse in the plans and the greenhouse got nixed, and that was a big penny project. So there's some flexibility there that was budgeted for other things that isn't going to go to those things. On page 4, I think, you see ESSER 2554GS. That was originally $124,894. This was the pot that we talked about using for the visual and performing arts. And every single penny of it is allocated. Jane Dewey did a really good job of going to all of her visual and performing arts teachers and asking what they needed and wanted. And let's see, they've already spent it down a lot, and they spent it down a lot more today with some purchase orders I signed today. So they were very excited to have the extra funds to support what they're doing in their classrooms. You see the ARP IDEA, that's one of Tina's pots of money, and the IDEA preschool. We have those allocations, but we have not spent those funds yet, and those are pretty restricted. Do you have anything you want to?
We've got it all budgeted out. If you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer.
But it all goes towards special education and preschool. So those are pretty restricted. And then on the back page, you see the big ESSER 3 pot, of which you approved, I think, 19 new positions. And that's where all those are coming from. So you see all of that currently is salary, and fringes that go with salary. Because that's where all of those positions are coming from. Now, some of those positions have yet to be filled, and some of them may not be needed, so we may not be using as much as we had budgeted for salary out of that one as well. Do you have any questions? Is that what you were hoping for?
This is exactly what I want. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This is perfect.
So the last ESSER funding monies that we got, that was actually over 3 years that we could allocate the funds?
It's 2 years. We approved those positions for 2 years. That goes until 2023.
That's right.
A lot of money. No questions?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sherry.
Indeed.
Very helpful.
Oh, I will say one more thing.
Sure.
When it says amount expended, that is what has been expended and the bill has been paid at this point. If there's something that's encumbered currently and we're waiting on the invoice to pay it, it's not included, because oftentimes that changes. We put a PO in for a certain amount and then we find out that we caught it on a good week and it's on sale, or we didn't estimate shipping, things like that. So I didn't want to put numbers in there that were estimates. The only one in there that's encumbrances only is the arts pot, because everything's only encumbered at this point. We've put the POs in, but we haven't received everything and we haven't received the invoices. So I still wanted you to see where we stood, maybe a little bit. And we've had a couple of instances where this wasn't as expensive as we thought it would be, so we're moving that around when we need to.
Any questions?
Nope.
Kim, is there any way we can get a monthly report on how we're doing on expenditures for this,
For the ESSER, yes, sir.
for all this? Is that, I know Sherry keeps track of it, I know
Yeah.
you do too, but I think the board would like to have a monthly report. It can be at the regular meeting, not the work session.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody okay with that? Okay. Thank you all. Okay, great report, really appreciate it. Now we're going to go to item 7. We did hear from both KSBA and KASA concerning the search for, using them as consultants to help put together the program. And that's really what it is putting it together so that we administratively don't have to do that. Of course, it comes down to the wishes of the board and what the board wants of the committee, selection committee, and from the selection company. Some boards ask for 5 candidates. Some boards ask for 3. Some boards want to see all of them as far as possibilities that maybe folks didn't make it through the first cut or whatever it might be. So the board has a lot of flexibility in what we want to see. So, and then also we as a board, if we want to dive further into their credentials and their references, we should be doing that anyways. So the committee does a lot of it, but I think when it comes to getting closer to hiring someone, I think that sometimes some of the questions are maybe not being asked that we would like to ask. So I guess what we're looking for is a motion on, or discussion about who you all would like to have. So anybody want to start?
From the information that we received from those 2 gentlemen, the one that stood out was KSBA, and I looked at their recently conducted searches, and what stood out was they did 2 searches for Garrett County and 2 from McCleary County, for 1 for us. And I think that was a good track record, and look at what they'd already done, and I would recommend them.
Okay. So are you going to make a motion on that?
Are we ready for a motion?
Well, I'd like to, I don't know if I both were highly qualified, obviously, and they know what they're doing. I was just, to me, the biggest difference was the number of people they had that they would reach. To me, I don't know a lot of administrators that have contact with KSBA, but I know a lot of administrators that have contact with KASA. And I'm thinking, like, if we want the most people to be able to, find or whatever, like we want them to find the most people, so we have the most options, I think KASA is the better route there. That's just my opinion.
That would probably might be it. I had thought a lot about it, and those presentations were good, and I know both gentlemen very well. And I had some time to reflect and think about both of those, and I think what they would be able to offer us as a board. And I probably at this time I would be leaning toward KASA as well.
Anybody else?
So I've been researching, and my only concern, if we get KASA, is I would like to have the person that presented. Is there any way that we could have that set in stone? Because the person that presented, because from my understanding, to be the one that does the search. I don't want somebody else to come in and do the search.
I would agree with that. I
So
would definitely
it would be
agree with that,
contingent.
for sure.
Okay, so do we want to get an answer to that question first
I think
before
so.
we decide?
I would like to know if that would be the case,
Okay.
because that would definitely maybe change some things.
Oh, that was the other thing I remember, is that he stated that we would be the only one.
Right,
Like, that
yes.
all of the attention would be on us. And then KSBA did not say.
No, yeah, he does 5 or 6.
So do we want to table this for now and come back on November the 8th?
I'd like to have a motion that we table it
Okay.
until we can get some further information.
Second?
We have a motion and second to table the item on superintendent search. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those in favor? Okay, motion carries. So I'll reach out to both.
That'd be good. And see who exactly will be doing this,
Okay.
please.
All right, sounds good. All right, thank you. All right, let's go to the consent agenda. It's things that we have looked at before. There have been assurances made that the Parks and Rec has their own ability to be able to disinfect the building. The baseball trip is the baseball trip, and it's usually well handled.
I actually have a question about the baseball.
Sure.
Is this the high school?
High school.
So, and I don't think I was on the board when the decision was made about the theater group not being allowed to do an overnight trip. But I guess I would just have questions as to why one group could do an overnight trip and another group could not.
I'm not sure when that was.
I think they was in the middle of COVID, it was right.
Well, they went like this weekend.
Oh,
They
okay.
went this last weekend. So I don't know if, like, do we have a policy on that? Like, is that something that?
Did we get that request?
I don't know.
They didn't come to,
It was a discussion
I was they
about
didn't come to the board.
whether or not at this point field trips would even be allowed. And then we talked and we said they could request to go overnight if they wanted to, but that had to come before the board and it never came
They
to
never got to the- I was
fruition.
gonna say, that didn't come
And that
before.
request was back in August.
Yeah, and
that's what
I
it
think
is.
they just decided with COVID, I think, is my understanding, we said if they wanted to go overnight, they would have to bring it before you all. And I think at that point, Ms. Dewey just said, we'll just go for one day. I think. Is that how you understand
Again, it
it?
was back in August when we were still facing a lot of schools shutting down and we were very concerned about being healthy and safe. And so at that point, we said, put in for it, and it cost us some money up front just to apply to go. So we made sure we did that. And as we got closer, their timing wasn't for her to come before you all and request that. That was the only reason.
Thank you for clarifying.
No, and Jennifer, I can assure you, we wouldn't do that to any of our groups.
Right, I just
I
didn't
know,
know, like,
I know.
that was something
I was like you, when you brought it up, I'm going, I don't even remember that one, so.
No, and I would just say, I would think that like this baseball trip's when it's not until the spring, right?
That's
Right,
correct.
same time?
That's correct.
So I would think if something were to happen and COVID like blew up again, we would probably want to revisit that. That's okay.
Sure. And there was one plan for last year that
Right.
it didn't happen.
That's correct.
So it's just the flexibility on that. Personnel notifications are on there, the MOA with Midway University's there. So I'd like to get a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Offer a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Second?
So we have a motion and second for the approval of the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. Okay, so now we're down to item 9, and that's to adjourn the meeting. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
We have a motion in probably a dozen or so seconds to adjourn our meeting. All those in favor of the emotions, I always call it emotional. The emotion to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all very much.